and company, another one of these red aggressive decks to try to prey on a format full of people playing tap lands and shock lands and stumbling a little bit more on their mana.
This is particularly ironic because Cedric was talking to me last week about playing a deck kind of similar to this in this week's tournament.
Oh yeah. Now, he probably doesn't know what he's up against yet, but a white bordered mountain should send should make the message very clear of what sort of a man you're showing down against.
So Chance leads off here with a mountain and a Rakdos Cackler, whereas Cedric has Temple of Enlightenment. Appears that Chance has also taken a mulligan here.
Now, Cedric's deck is actually, this is just a blue-white deck, right? Like, this is not actually straight-up Esper. He happens to have a couple temples, but I don't believe he actually has any black cards at all, even main or board.
Correct, that appears to be the case. Although I don't want to read in, there's already been so many handwriting errors here that I don't want to read in too much of this. As you see a basic Swamp and a second Rakdos Cackler here from Chance, and now the cat is out of the bag here.
Yeah. I mean, the Mountain Rakdos Cackler opening could be a couple things, but now that he plays basic Swamp, which is also white bordered, the jig is up.
As you see, as Chance attacks with both Rakdos Cackler, Cedric plays an Azorius Charm on one of them.
Yeah, now, this matchup is actually generally not that bad for Rakdos, right? I mean, they punish the slow starts. I mean, Sphinx's Revelation can be a serious problem, obviously, in Supreme Verdict, but...
Pack rather play for Chance. I actually think the Esper matchup is very favorable, and the blue-white matchup is negative.
Ah, okay. So that extra...
The islands and plains versus all these
Well, this is a blue-white deck with 4 guild gates and 6 temples that are off color.
Fair enough.
So you have all the drawbacks without any of the upside.
You see Chance here draw the Rakdos Cackler that was set on top of his deck and send across with Pack Rat and his Rakdos Cackler. No third land still. And Chance redeploys the Rakdos Cackler.
Yeah, one of the real risks of these temple decks is the possibility that their 4th turn they won't have an untapped land for Verdict. Yeah. But it looks like Cedric has the untapped land, so if he has a Supreme Verdict, he can get a huge leg up in this game. And that is what we're going to see. Oh no, a Jace.
Jace, wow. Architect of Thought here, still very good for Cedric here.
Particularly since Chance missed his land drop.
So Chance now with still no third land, Pack Rat and 2 Rakdos Cacklers alongside his mountain and his swamp, trying to see if he can figure out some way to remove this Jace from the table.
Yeah, and I don't think it's happening this turn, but he does want to try to put as much pressure on Cedric as possible. Now you have to kill the Jace here, right? Like, there's just no future in not attacking Jace.
It appears that Chance disagrees and he's going at Cedric. I think I prefer whittling down Jace a little bit here. Especially if you have a Magma Jet, because that could be 4 damage, which means that Jace doesn't even have the option of minusing to find cards next turn.
Yeah.
Knocking the Jace down to 1 is a big deal. And you see Chance here looking at 2 Azava and a Chandra's Phoenix, I assume both going to the bottom as he's searching for a third land.
What do you think about keeping the Pack Rat home? I kind of like just swing with the Pack Rat.
Keep its legs fresh.
Well, and you don't know.
It is true, you do never know. I guess it is arguably better if Cedric has Domestication for the Pack Rat to be tapped rather than untapped.
It's also true.
All the little nuances.
Oh, yeah. That's how you got to play these red-black decks, nuanced.
Yes. So...
I find enjoying a fine Rakdos deck to be like enjoying a fine wine. You know, you have to have a palate for it. You have to have an appreciation for the subtleties.
Yeah. And Jace is going up, and there's Supreme Verdict. A really powerful sequence for Cedric.
Absolutely.
And Lightning Strike the draw for Chance. No third land, but it's still, you know, it's not unreasonable that he could threaten to kind of burn Cedric out of this game.
Absolutely. What's tough is that he's got Phoenixes and Dragons in his hand, meaning that Jace is a real liability. Wow, and this Sphinx's Revelation is threatening to put the game out of reach.
Yeah. Cedric quickly takes Sphinx's Revelation here and plays a 6th land, a Plains, threatening a red for 3 here. lightning strike at the end of the turn.
What do you think about this whole 24 land in your X of a Stormbreath Dragon strategy? How many land do these Rakdos decks usually have?
It depends how high they're kind of trying to go. I think 24 is probably industry standard for a deck that's trying to go all the way up to 4 and 5 drops. See Dreadbore here from Chance. And Cedric says, that is fine. I will rev for 3.
A real big revelations for Cedric. Looks like he's at 96.5%. I would have thought even higher than that.
How do you noodle through these percentages so quickly?
No, just looking. We have the little. I assume the people at home can see that same little number, like the poker. What are the odds of winning this hand?
Oh,
thing?
sure, yeah. You see a quick Jason minus from Cedric showing another Sphinx's Revelation, a Divination, and an Azorius Charm.
You got to just take the Sphinx's Revelation for the extra life gain, right? That's the single best thing you got going on here. You've got all the tools to win the game. Just make sure you don't get burnt out, right?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Cedric losing unless some weird, skull crack, other burn spell type of sequence happens. It's not going to be on the ground. It's not going to be through creatures.
Yeah, and it looks like the computer agrees with you. 99%. Another Magma Jet. The problem is these cards are just too low impact when Cedric has Sphinx's Revelation and Jace going.
Yep. And Chance has looked at a lot of cards here as the Syncopate counters the Magma Jet.
Absolutely. Why not?
Good spot to use your Syncopate, I feel like.
Sure. It's mana efficient. It's free. Plus, don't let him look for land, because you don't know what's in his hand. You don't want him getting into, you don't want him having any counterplay at all.
Spike Gesture, the draw for Chance. Something castable, at least. And Cedric says that is fine. And goes after Jace and knocks Jace down to 1. So, not sure what, if I guess we're talking about the trigger getting announced or what have you.
The fact that he moves the Jace down 2 counters indicates the trigger has took place.
Maybe there's some confusion about whether or not that Jace is supposed to be, if he minused it last turn or plussed it.
Sure.
But it looks like that has been resolved and play will continue.
Chance is actually putting up a pretty good fight for a guy who has 2 land in play on turn 8.
Yeah, nothing castable in hand, and yeah, he's
done a lot this game. Unfortunately, that verdict was backbreaking. The verdict is in. It doesn't look good for Rakdos this game.
The Jace was also quite good here, I feel.
Oh yeah, Jace brought the whole thing together.
Cedric takes Jace up. And again, Cedric just trying to be very careful here. The way he taps his mana, make sure that he has access to all of his defenses on his and Chance's turn, and just trying to close all the doors.
Now, if you're Chance, is Burning Earth gonna be a big part of your sideboard plan? He is just blue-white, but he's already shown Azorius Guildgate and Temple of Deceit.
I am personally not a huge fan of bringing in Burning Earth against a deck with this many basics, but it is not unreasonable, particularly when he's going to be on the play. It's a very high variance card because there's still plenty of non-basics. They get draws, they can't really beat it, but they also have draws where they have 1 dual land or alongside some islands and some plains, and your Burning Earth looks pretty silly. And now Cedric sort of going through the motions here, lands Elspeth, and he should be able to put the game away in fairly short order from here. Dissolve still at the ready.
And this is what these blue-white decks do in terms of actually when they establish control. It's not like they have some iron lock or whatever. It's just that they create a big board position, and if everything goes well, they can end up with 1 counter spell just in case, just to make sure.
Right. There's no forbid going on here. There's no capsize. There's no permanent lock.
Right. No Icy Manipulator Winter Orb. No Disrupting Scepter mana drain.
Right. And Cedric just taking up his planeswalkers. Chance still without a third land, crazy enough. He's played so many turns and even scryed away 2 spells to the bottom.
A lot of people might not realize this. Mana Drain not on the reserve list.
Yep. It comes up a lot.
Yeah, it is legal to be reprinted. I wouldn't hold my breath though.
Probably not in a standard legal product. Chance finally finds his third land. It is, torturously enough, a Temple of Malice.
Yeah.
And just looking at a hand of uncastables and
now,
a Rakdos Cackler.
Is it possible that he's just trying to figure out how to get the most information out of Cedric as possible?
That is not unreasonable. It's going to be hard to extract a lot of information with your Rakdos Cackler here, but it's a noble effort.
Oh no. See, I feel like that's just the moment you don't unleash your Rakdos Cackler, it's like you've given up.
Oh yeah, it is the white flag.
Yeah.
And and Chance has had enough, and we're going to be going on to the sideboard games. Now, I have Chance's sideboard in front of me. He has 2 copies of Erebus, God of the Dead, 2 Burning Earths, 3 Mizzing Mortars, 3 Dark Betrayal, 3 Doomblade, a Mogus, God of Slaughter, and an Underworld
That's your boy.
Cerebus.
That's your boy.
So, I would imagine his instinct here is to just go to, his Mogus and his 2 copies of Erebos and potentially the Burning Earth as well. That's up in the air, let's say, and remove some of his spot removal that's not very good in this matchup. Certainly, the Ultimate Price is not very well suited here. Maybe, some of his Magma Jet style cards. But I do, again, I feel like it's really hard to beat Esper decks by trying to just have a long game plan.
The nice thing though is that since he has so much early, he actually has a little bit more early pressure than we saw that game. He doesn't have a ton. He's a little bit bigger of a Rakdos deck than most, but he's got a lot of cards to sideboard out that are real easy to board out. It's like Ultimate Price, Lightning Strike, or Magma Jet. Like some amount of those burn spells, and then coming in Erebos, God of the Dead. Great for shutting down the life gain from Sphinx's Revelation, and a durable threat that can live through Supreme Verdict. Plus, it actually attacks in this deck. Mogi's God of Slaughter, as we talked about, another source of damage. I mean, it is a real threat. Burning Earth, it's not clear if he's going to want it here, but I kind of think it's just better than a Lightning Strike.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then finally, I actually think we're going to see Underworld Cerebus also. It's another slow threat, which is not the best kind here, but at least it's a very, very upside kind of creature.
Sure.
This is a matchup where the symmetrical nature of it doesn't really punish you.
And on Cedric's side, we have a Pithy Needle, an Elixir of Mortality, a Fated Retributions, a Revoke Existence, a Blind Obedience, 2 Negates, a couple Glare of Heresies, some Archangel of Thunes, and some Gainsays.
So right off the top, the 3 Archangel of Thunes, that's a really important game. And that actually, if Chance has been following the format, he might keep Ultimate Price, assuming that Archangels are going to come in because they've been so popular lately, which is a really risky gamble.
Right. The concern that I would have if I was in Cedric's seat about bringing in the Archangels, it would be one thing if you were playing against a mono red deck where maybe they bring in Mizzing Mortars, maybe they don't. Or you're playing against a mono black aggressive deck, a theoretical one where it's, are they living in Ultimate Price or not? There's a question there, and that game forces them to either leave in their inefficient removal or possibly be caught with their pants down when you do have your threat. The problem here is that Chance is playing Rakdos, so he has Dreadbore. That's a card that he's already going to be keeping in his deck to fight over Jace and Elspeth potentially as well. So I think that Archangel is a little bit lower upside here than in most places because Chance has a low opportunity cost answer that you're positive he's going to still have in his deck in the post-board games.
Yeah, so the thing is, there's only 2 Dreadbores. He doesn't know that. He definitely doesn't know that. But I think Archangel is good enough against these aggressive decks. They're going to use their Dreadbores and your Elspeths or your Jaces anyway if they draw them, and they don't always draw them. Archangel, I think it's just a high enough impact card that you're going to want to go that route, particularly since you don't really have much else to board in. The only other card you may want to consider is Elixir of Immortality, but even the Elixir... and Blind Obedience. The 1 Blind Obedience is good.
Yes.
But outside of the 1 Blind Obedience, you don't really have a lot of options beyond maybe Elixir. And I don't even like the Elixir here because this is much more of a big creature deck than a burn deck. I think you like the Elixir against control for the long game or against a straight burn deck just for the life gain.
Yep. And Blind Obedience is actually, it's mostly there for the green-red monsters matchup. They have a lot of haste.
Yeah, but it's even better here.
Oh yeah, you're trying to fight Mistcutter Hunter, Stormbreath Dragon. Chance's deck is like a who's who of what Blind Obedience is good against. He has Zava, Stormbreath Dragon, Spike Jester, and Chandra's Phoenix as creatures.
Oh yeah.
How good is Blind Obedience here?
Yeah, it's quite good. Quite. Now, to take out, though, how much permission are you willing to take out? I mean, the Dissolves and the Syncopates are a little slow, but a lot of these Rakdos decks have a lot of 3, 4, and 5s instead of just all 1s and 2s.
Yeah, the problem is that, Cedric actually didn't get to see a lot of Chance's deck in action there because Chance was missing land drops for so long. So if you know that you're going to be playing against Stormbreath Dragons and Zavas and that sort of thing, then your counterspells get a lot better. But based on the cards that he saw, Cedric could be thinking that Chance is just a really low-end aggressive deck. He's not necessarily going all the way up. And then if you're playing against that kind of matchup, then the Dissolves and such get a lot worse. Because you can easily imagine that Chance died at the end of the game with a bunch of spot removal in his hand, not necessarily Stormbreath Dragon type of threats.
Yeah, I mean, obviously step one is taking that Fated Retribution out and replacing it with a Blind Obedience.
Yes.
But beyond that, all his cards are good. The question is, do you want to trim a little bit on like Dissolve or Syncopate? Do you want to consider... I personally, I would cut the 2 Divinations, I think. I think Divination is much better against a mono-black deck than a black-red deck. I don't think you got that kind of time. I'd rather just see some Archangels instead of Divinations.
Play a little more proactively.
Yeah, and I Divination more than most. I love keeping Divination in when you can, but I think this is just one spot where you have to respect how aggressive the Rakdos deck can be.
So Chance on the play with 7 cards. Leads off with Temple of Malice. Slides it to the bottom. And an island from Cedric.
A tasteful island.
Well,
it's no unhinged island, but it is very tasteful.
This is another interesting thing because of the density of dual lands in the blue-white control list. Leading off with a basic land actually is an indicator there might be something really wrong with the hand.
Oh yeah.
Too much land or too few land or something might be up as you see Chance play a Mutavault and a Pack Rat. And Cedric with the 1 Blind Obedience, so we're going to see this in action.
Yep. Pack Rat, one of the strongest cards in Chance deck against Blind Obedience.
Although it lines up kind of poorly against a lot of the other cards that Cedric has. Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict, and what have you.
Definitely. And he can't really cut it because he has too many other cards that are just bad enough that you want to cut, but...
So now Chance plays a 3rd land, and I
assume we're making a rat here, right?
I believe we're making a rat. And it's really interesting how much the Blind Obedience changes the texture of this game because it looked like Chance had this game plan of haste creature, haste creature, haste creature. And now that's all out the door.
All off the table.
So Pack Rat comes across for 2.
And Pack Rat is one of the least reliable attackers in general against a deck with 4 Supreme Verdicts and 4 Detention Spheres.
And I wonder, again, that Cedric's hand, maybe something's a little curious about it because he let off with 2 basic lands here.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if the Blind Obedience perhaps coaxed him into keeping a hand that might have been on the margins otherwise.
Yep. It's not clear.
And Cedric with a Divination. Doesn't have to discard because he played Blind Obedience on the 2nd turn and passes the turn back. Another Temple for Chance.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those games where it's really about what Cedric does because Chance's script is pretty much laid out, Oh, it's interesting. I like this. Instead of committing more rats to the table, bash as hard as you can and play around Supreme Verdict. I like that.
Chance with a heads-up play there, just animating his Mutavault and attacking along his 2 rats rather than play a 3rd rat before combat.
Very smart play. I like that a lot.
Temple of Enlightenment for Cedric. And just passes the turn back.
Now, he did put that on the bottom, right?
I did not catch a glimpse. So Chance doing a very good job of operating around this Blind Obedience right now.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And as you said, turn 1 island out of a blue-white deck is a sign of weakness.
Chance is again going to fire up the Mutavault and send his creatures across.
Now, are we going to see a Last Breath or an Azorius Charm, you think?
Azorius Charm on the Mutavault. Cedric extorts also with the Blind Obedience. And it looks like now Chance is coming across for 4 damage.
And it is important to hit the Mutavault there so as to make the possibility of drawing a Supreme Verdict or a Detention Sphere that much more effective.
It gives Cedric the highest upside draws for sure.
Definitely.
So now Chance, now with Cedric's shields down, goes ahead and Magma Jet Cedric down to 5. Looking at Mutavault Lightning Strike, 2.
So what do you think about Magma Jetting after the Azorius Charm resolves? Feels like perhaps you're supposed to Magma Jet in response, unless you just think that you might want to actually put the Mutavault on the bottom.
Sure. I think it's a reasonable chance he would want to bottom Mutavault.
I don't know. It's possible. He doesn't have any more land, though, right?
I think he has 1 land left in hand.
Oh, okay.
Cedric here really mulling over this. Blind Obedience playing a critical role here and giving him a lot of breathing room, but it's not clear if it's going to be enough. 5 mana, and there's a Supreme Verdict with an Extort trigger.
That's big. That's what Cedric needed to do. He is miles from out of the woods, but that is the right first step. And as we see, not having the Mutavault on top costs Chance big, as it means now he can't play Exiva while the Gittin's good.
Well, it's not clear how much upside Exiva is even in here because of Blind Obedience in
It's
play.
still a 4/4.
It still matters.
I would much rather have a 4/4 on the table than an extra tap land, particularly since the Mutavault could threaten to attack next turn.
There's so much burn in Chance's hand, it looks like here. 2 Magma Jets as he's casting 1 now and a Lightning Strike as well.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Cedric's Blind Obedience, this game would be long over.
In multiple dimensions.
Yeah.
The life gain and shutting off Chance's haste creatures, they've both been critical.
Yeah. We are seeing the strength of Blind Obedience, basically single-handedly keeping Cedric in what would otherwise be a blowout.
Archangel Thune the draw for Cedric.
That's big. That's one of the few cards that he could play that actually gives him a way to make forward progress.
And Cedric passes it back.
Now he's looking to counter the dragon that comes down next. Oh, he's going to go for the win. He's going to do the straight-up Lightning Strike.
This is a very risky play here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things can go wrong. See, I would, man.
Let's see what kind of response this prompts from Cedric. Cedric says, okay.
Very aggressive. Now we're going to see a Sphinx for 2, effectively countering the Magma Jet.
And if I'm Chance, at the minimum, I'm not a huge fan of the sequencing regardless, but at the minimum, I would want to do this on Cedric's upkeep.
Yeah.
Cedric had all of his mana available to him. At least make him spend his mana on his own turn and maybe set the stage for you to be able to resolve something else.
Well, no, you would win because you have Mutavault to attack with.
Sure.
I mean, I think you're exactly right.
And now we'll see if Cedric can do something with the breathing space. Again, still definitely not out of the woods.
Oh yeah, but this one's actually anyone's game. I mean, this is a real close one at this point. I mean, Cedric can drop the Archangel and Extort. He's still dead to a lot of different draws, but he's making progress. And if he hits with that Angel, stuff starts getting real.
The risk with because of that Mutavault being in play, the risk here is that Archangel means that he dies to a burn spell or a removal spell, freeing up the Mutavault and attacking for lethal.
Yeah, I think there's just not going to be very many. There aren't very many potential removal spells Chance could have, and you can't really play around him at this point. You got to be moving forward. I mean, what's the alternative? Sit and try to cast 3 spells so you get enough Extort triggers that you're not going to just die to a burn spell?
Yeah. You can see Cedric just. Every permutation of plays he goes over, it's just raised eyebrows like, well, that's a risk, and that's a risk, and that's a risk.
So he is going to just pass the turn. We're not sure what other options he has, but he apparently has something that he finds more appealing than dropping Archangel of Thune.
And we're going to see an Azorius Charm with an Extort trigger.
No surprise there.
Drags Cedric up to 2.
Drags him, kicking and screaming. No, not up to 2 life.
And Chance with no follow-up.
Now, the nice thing about this line is he can drop the Archangel now and at least be out of Magma Jet range. Looks like Cedric's a small favorite at this point. Chance has a ton of live draws, though.
Yeah, but I think that Cedric also, he might be sensing some weakness from what's left over in Chance's hand. He might feel now that he knows that the draw step that Chance has is a Mutavault.
Definitely.
He might have the luxury of playing around a lot of stuff now.
See, I don't know. I think you're supposed to drop the Archangel there. The shields were down. You had your chance. But Cedric, very patiently, playing a very controlling game.
And there is the Underworld Cerebus.
Underworld Cerebus, first of all, a pretty big body. But second of all, he makes it, he is mostly unblockable, although that doesn't come up too much in this matchup. I mean, Elspeth can still block him. But the big thing is that he can't really be beat by Supreme Verdict. He can be slowed down, but he can't really be beat. The Archangel can't actually block him, though. However, Azorius Charm, still a fine removal spell to stop the Underworld Cerebus. Detention Sphere as well.
So by no means a lock, but perhaps a nuisance for Cedric to have to fight through.
Oh, yeah. Cedric gaining some life, working his way up, but I think that it's real tough in a spot like this. Without having that Archangel in play, he doesn't have as much forward progress as he would like. This is definitely a statement of strength by Cedric, though. Not dropping, I mean, the Archangel is a little bit of a desperate play. Cedric is saying, you know what? I'm actually in control of this game. I think I'm a favorite. I'm just going to play safe and play around things.
Yeah. It's possible that Cedric was thinking the whole time that if he just runs the Archangel into the jaws of a Dreadport, that's such a bad exchange for him that he'd rather be a little more conservative. And now you're starting to see him feeling like he has enough breathing space to do something like this, deploy the Archangel to him.
Yeah, I mean, in this spot, this puts Cedric up to a comfortable enough life total that he can't be burnt out, and he's got Azorius Charm for that Cerebus. Things are actually real bad for Chance now. This has been an impressive comeback and turnaround by Cedric Phillips. That key battle, fighting on your own turn instead of your opponent's upkeep, seems like it was one of the deciding points of the game, if it goes that way. You know, it's undecided, but...
I mean, if you want to backtrack a little bit, I would have been happy just saying go there if I was in Chance's seat, not cast anything. Because the odds are so high that at some point Cedric pulls the trigger and tries to Revelate or play an Elspeth or something where you just kill him. And since you have the Mutavault in play, you're always threatening him some amount. You know?
Oh, yeah.
But you are correct. This has been a very impressive turnaround by Cedric. Chance untaps and takes a draw.
Looks like Spike Jester.
And this has been one for the Blind Obedience highlight reel this game.
Yeah.
Chance turns on his Mutavault.
Wow, this is a little dicey. Sending that Mutavault in there is like...
It doesn't seem like there's any additional upside here.
Well, I mean, is it a desperation bluff where you're just hoping? I mean, I don't know what you...
So
I guess if you... No, yeah.
Cerebus comes across and Cedric with the Azorius Charm. And now you see Zava the Blood Witch.
Bow to me. I still don't understand how Rorik Thar has to come into play tapped when Blind Obedience is in play. Doesn't make any sense to me, flavor
police.
Yeah. Now, if we can get Ben Stark on the phone, maybe he can answer for us why that could possibly be legal in this day and age.
I mean, the ship has sailed with, Bone Splitter on River Boa or Remove Soul on Soulless One. Magic has a long history of this stuff kind of not making any sense. Another Archangel here from Cedric.
So this is big. This is going to lock it up, I think. This is real big.
So, and now we're seeing the Blind Obedience plus Archangel combo.
Oh, yeah. Combo.
Yeah. There's a lot of angles here. So the Extort trigger pumps one of the Archangels, but not the second one because it's still a spell on the stack. And so we're going to see another trigger resolve here and pump both Archangels. And so there we go. Now everything's clean and Cedric in firm control of this game. And if you're a fan of blue-white control, this has to be a really excellent game to watch.
Oh yeah, very instructional. You gotta be okay with looking behind for a while, playing tight. Cedric knew how good that the blind obedience was in his opening hand. Kept his hand on the strength despite no detention spheres and no supreme verdicts. But it all came together, and the blind obedience gave him enough power to bridge the gap.
So you see the Underworld Cerebus make its return. Should be tapped, and Cedric points that out.
But the Archangels, representing 11 points of damage in the air, chance at 10. This game is a done data. Cedric Phillips, 2-0. Very, very impressive. These Archangel Athunes, so good. I mean, obviously, it has a lot of similarities to Baneslayer Angel, but there's a lot of neat things you can do. And unlike Baneslayer Angel, people aren't targeting the Archangel as much. It isn't as present all the time. Baneslayer was so ubiquitous that people would be set up to fight it all of the time.
You see Cedric getting chances trying to figure if there's something else out here, but he's tapped out. He has a creature that can't block because its Unleash End doesn't fly, and Cedric just sort of thumbing his cards back and forth, waiting for the turn to get passed.
Yeah. Cedric did the math.
Another Archangel, another Extort trigger, and that's...
Oh, if you have 3 angels, you know.
Well, now I'm dead. Finally, now I'm dead, I guess. Cedric Phillips, 2 games to 0, beating Chance May in his Rakdos aggro deck.
Blind Obedience, Archangel of Thune. Real high-impact sideboard cards from Cedric Phillips.
Yeah, Blind Obedience is a really compelling case study because when that card came out, when it was previewed, a lot of people that I saw on the internet, even a lot of deck builders that I respect a lot, were talking about building Blind Obedience decks. They wanted to play 3 or 4 copies. They wanted to figure out a way to add enough cheap spells to do X, Y, and Z, all that. And that never really took any sort of foothold. But as a one-of in your control list, it's an enormous upside card.
Yeah, it definitely has proven the deck builders and theorists talking about just adding a Blind Obedience or 2 to random decks has definitely bared out the way that the format has gone.
And I think that